I've got a list here of Mira's triumphs, and I'm sorry, they are triumphs. I make absolutely no apology for saying so. And these are stories really that are still talked about now in many ways, and certainly have been talked to me before by editors of previous magazines as the exemplar of what you should be doing as an investigative reporter. So get ready to learn, journos. So Paternoster Square in the 1980s.
They're all after building.
Yes, okay.
Yeah.
Building can't claim the credit, but it has some eerie echoes of Chelsea Barracks, this story, which we'll talk about perhaps later on this evening. But tell us the story. How did it happen? Stuart Lipton was involved.
Yeah, Stuart Lipton had run a competition for the redevelopment of Paternoster Square, which suffered heavy bomb damage during the Blitz, and virtually nothing was left there apart from the cathedral itself. And I'm sure you've all seen the wonderful photograph of the cathedral in clouds of smoke but intact. And it was obviously a symbol for London's surviving, coming out of the Blitz and the Blitz spirit and all that. And a wonderful image. But all around it was devastation. And immediately after the war in the 50s, a scheme was put up. And it was a poor scheme. It didn't do justice to the area. It was a modernist, windswept, lots of concrete piazzas. So a competition was run in the mid-80s for a new scheme, and it was won, surprise, surprise, by Arup. And there were going to be buildings there by Richard Rogers and Michael Hopkins and all the usual suspects. And I remember sitting, I can't remember the exact date, but I remember sitting one day in Dan Cruikshank's house in Spitalfields and bemoaning the relentless march of modernism everywhere and thinking, what can we do about this? And one of the persons who was sitting there with us drinking red wine, I don't drink, so I remember all this stuff, was John Simpson, the architect, not the man in the burqa from Libya, the bow-tied classicist architect. And I don't know how it happened, but I said to him, John, if you were to design a rival scheme to the Arab one, I will see if I can get the Standard interested in running it as a rival scheme. And he did, and I did. And thanks to the editor of the Evening Standard at the time, the late John Leese, and who consulted Brian Sewell, who's very much with us, I'm pleased to say, the Evening Standard agreed not only to run Which Do You Prefer, Dear Reader, but also paid John Simpson, when the referendum came in with 8-2 in favour.
Tell them about the coupon. There was a coupon.
Yes, there was a coupon. So those are the days before email. We couldn't have electronic referenda. The page had the Arab scheme, the Simpson scheme, and a coupon with take this. And we had well over 1,000. So in terms of polling, that was a pretty good representative sample. And it was 8-2 in favour of John Simpson, who of course was presented in the article as Prince Charles's favourite. And indeed, the Simpson scheme was endorsed by Prince Charles, not overtly, but as soon as it was associated with Prince Charles, and I'm sure Prince Charles will come up again this evening, there was no denials from St. James's Palace as it was then. And it was seen as really the big round, the prince versus the architects. And as ever, every single time it's happened since then, the popular vote 8-2 in favour of Prince Charles. Amazingly consistent. Anyway, the paper pages planning fee, which at the time was only about £2,000. That's changed. We probably couldn't afford to do that again. And you may not know, well, probably you don't know this, you're far too young to remember, or you might not even been born. He got planning permission. The scheme got planning permission, there was no developer.
And by this point it was about 1988.
It was late 80s, and unfortunately, virtually the same time the Simpson scheme got planning permission, the commercial property market crashed. And by the way, it is my personal opinion that the commercial property market, as opposed to the residential, has still not recovered. And if you look at high cash rental values, they are still largely lower than they were in 1988 in cash terms. Take inflation into account, and Anyway, that's just a slight deviation. But by the time the commercial market returned, the Simpsons scheme was seen as maybe a starting point. The scheme that is there now, in my opinion, is vastly better than the Arab scheme, and not nearly as good as a Simpson scheme. That's my opinion. However, I've come to realize that when it comes to these battles of King Kong meets Godzilla, you're lucky to get half a loaf. So half a loaf at Paternoster Square was definitely better than none. And every time I go past and see Temple Bar, which was tucked away in some Hertfordshire
Field, yeah.
I'm thinking, at least, if nothing else, at least we've got this massive, important city landmark back in the city. Not where it was originally, but back in the city, not far from where it was originally. So that was a battle worth winning.